This story I'm telling from my own perspective. This happened in 2004, I believe. I am female, and I was 17-year-old in high school. I had temporarily moved in with my dad due to some family problems between my mum and stepdad. I was never very popular in school. I wanted to have a lot of friends, and for the first time, I felt like I had my own group to hang out with. In my other schools, I'd always been friends with one person or two people from many different groups. But if the person I was friends with wasn't around, I would be alone. This group was different. It was nice to have lots of friends. There was about 10 of us, and it was a grungy sort of gothic type group. I don't care what other people thought of me. I had other friends that weren't goth, but these were my closest friends at the time. We hung out all the time. For a little necessary backstory, my dad was not the greatest person, but as a 17-year-old who came from a broken home and had been going through a lot lately, I was very depressed. I went to live with my dad out of desperation of being a hard-headed teenage girl that I was at the time. I decided to give my dad another chance, thinking that all the feelings that I had about him were wrong and that I was safe. I was naive. I could write another story about him, but I'm over it now, and our relationship as well. Almost a story. I'd been attending my new school for a good while now. It was about 6 months in or so. One of the girls from the group that I hung out with the most and was closest to, named Mary, had walked home with me after school, and we stopped at the fridge to grab a drink. She didn't look happy. I had no idea why she had changed her demeanour so drastically. She occasionally asked me, "Why is this on your fridge?" What was I supposed to say? There were a lot of things on the fridge that my dad stuck there, including business cards and such. I didn't even know which things she was talking about. I looked at her, almost amused and quite confused, but her frustration began to scare me. She pointed to a phone number scribbled on a ripped piece of paper with no name. I got defensive and retorted, "I don't know, it's been there since I moved in." After a while of probing and trying to convince her that it had nothing to do with the number, she told me it was off the girl that used to be the leader or mother figure in the group before I came along. I was nowhere near a leader nor mother figure. I asked where she was, now curious why this was so important to her. She told me that last year, she and a bunch of people from the group were hanging out at a park in our somewhat small town on a weekend night. It felt safe, because this was a close-knit group with many guys in it to protect the girls. As the night neared, and then for the group, they dispersed into smaller groups to have the males walk the females home in case they ran into trouble. I don't remember the name of this leader figure that Mary was talking about, but I'll call her Jane. Well, come Monday morning, the girls in the group were in the bathroom at school when the intercom announced that Jane was found dead over the weekend. Apparently, there was a lot of uproar and craziness, at least in that group of friends, because they had noticed she wasn't at school, but hadn't thought much of it. Of course, they were distraught, and had been very emotionally attached with Jane. They became unstable, I'm sure, at least as she told me the rest, and her depression began to show. I figured, based upon that, and the fact that the rest of the group talked her up so much, with such dark demeanour to them once I brought it up, that they had held in the grave very close. I was shocked that Mary's accusing question was the first time I'd heard of this girl from anyone after 6 months. The story goes like this. Jane was very close to the guy that walked her home. She shared many personal emotions with him. She leaned on him for support, and he cared about her. That is why, as they walked home together, he stabbed her 14 times in her back with a sword. He was an avid collector. I wonder now why they would have been carrying that thing around at night though. She was found on a railroad track sometime after the event took place, obviously before the weekend was over. He cared so much about her that he wanted to end her misery and mistook her leaning on him for support as an implication that he should help her physically. He didn't want her to be in pain emotionally, so he took her life. I will leave a link in the description below to the news story. The story doesn't end there. As I said, this is from my own point of view, and it wouldn't be my story to tell, unless it has something to do with me personally, and it's really fucked up. I was quite concerned about my friends at this point. I wondered if that was really her phone number after all. It just seemed far-fetched, and I couldn't go on anymore without knowing the truth. I confronted my dad. I asked him whose number was on the fridge, and he was quite unwilling to tell me. I'm quite curious and upset that I was asking. It's like he thought I was on to him. That makes me even more concerned with the truth. I'm wondering what the hell this big mystery was surrounding that damned blank name phone number on the fridge. I asked him again. He wouldn't say. But, suspectingly and annoyed, almost angry, asked, "Why?" I flat out told him, "Because, Dad, she's dead." I let it sink in for him for a minute. I was really, really itching for the truth, and very suspicious of what he had to do with her. He looked deflated and found out. I guess it was her. I asked him what she looked like and explained why I knew. I asked why he had her number. The previous year, he had been taking care of my grandmother in the home, so he didn't live alone. My dad told me that as he spent much time gardening and doing lawn maintenance daily, school-aged kids would walk by the yard. Jane and her friends walked by almost daily, and eventually, Jane and my dad became friends. Sometimes they claimed Jane would come inside for a soda and even talk with my grandmother. This is believable. However, I do not believe this to be the real way he knew her. Remember, at the beginning of the story, I didn't trust my dad growing up. He said one day she stopped coming by. I believe this part because of the obvious conclusion that she died. But I believe my dad may have been sexual partners with her somehow. Make of it what you will. I don't believe him. I'm glad I don't know the truth about that part. And if you look up the story and look more into the victim's life, perhaps you might find a clue as to whether she might have been the type to be interested in older men, or whatever. But I won't look. As I said, tonight was the first time I even looked up the story. It was quite easy to find using keywords, such as 2003, Texas, girl, and stabbed. Make of the story what you will. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment below. All feedback, good or otherwise, is always appreciated. If you have any creepy stories of your own, or have any topics that you would like me to cover, feel free to send them in via any of my social media. You can find all links to my social media in the description below. Until next time guys, make sure you lock your doors, stay safe, and I'll see you next video.